Hello, welcome to the Paranormal Tourists. I'm your host, Tom Jordan. To my left, like actually visually, physically, to my left is Danny McGellans. Say hello, Danny.
Hello, Danny.
It's been a while, but same gag.
Still annoying.
And sitting across from me, but not due to social distancing, just due to the fact that he is on the other side of the table, is paranormal expert. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Ross Andrews.
Look at any camera you want, Tom. We don't mind. Look at my camera and check
Look at
I'm
all
in
the cameras.
shots.
You're there. You're in shot.
We
Hello.
should actually explain that we are in Castel Mog, which is a place you won't get to investigate. But we're crammed into the corner of a big garden because we
Huge garden.
Just to the side over here. There's a swimming pool, and we were going to film this with us in the swimming pool. But
Swimming pool.
It's not warm enough.
It's too cold.
So we're kind of crammed into the corner, so crammed in that we can't actually get a shot of the three of us. So we're not. We may as well have been on Zoom. Again, really.
Has a little bit
It's
of
like
a Zoom
real life
feel.
Zoom.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like we couldn't get enough of Zoom.
We decided to recreate
And
it.
speaking of which, this is I don't know, the fifth time that we have tried to restart this series. Those of you who follow things that we do on social media may have seen in the past us saying, "Oh, we're going to do this and this is coming," but it's been a very COVID-y time.
That was what it was.
Yeah,
COVID.
that's what happened.
This thing happened.
So the last we were heard from actually is April 2021.
Yeah, I mean, like as the paranormal tourist, not just the last we were heard from.
No,
we've
been
our
around.
families are really
It hasn't
worried.
been like a missing persons
We've
case
been
or
stuck
anything
in
like that.
Castel Mog for the last 2
Nearly
years.
a year and a half.
You get to see me drinking a coffee. How exciting is that?
Oh, I've got to cover up my can for
Cover up
yeah.
can.
point.
But in April 2021, we had a very exciting summer ahead. We had investigations. We were going out on sites and touring around the country to do lots of things. And then I don't know whether anyone remembers the weather in 2021 summer. It was crap.
Yeah.
And
Well, don't
COVID.
say too much. We've got a clip
I mean,
about that.
yeah. So
There is
I
a
mean,
clip coming
Spoilers.
up. Yeah.
almost none of that happened. I say almost because a smidgen, that's a good word, a smidgen of it did indeed happen. So what we thought we would do to sort of kickstart this dive back into the world of the
New
paranormal
series.
tourists, this new series, is we thought we would utilise some of that footage from long. It's almost like a time slip. It's like we're time slipping back a year.
No,
Is that how they
Found
work?
my link.
No, oh no!
Yeah.
You've just obviously reminded her of some awful film that she's watched at some point.
Some terrible 90s
Now,
film.
speaking of awful films, Tom,
Yes.
last summer we were up in the Lake District filming lots of stuff to put out, and it didn't stop raining for the entire summer. So we got
No.
about 3 clips, and here's one of them.
It's very rainy.
Yeah.
Enjoy. What's it about?
Kendal.
Kendal. It's like Kendal. Not the mint cake.
Oh, I made
Same
the
place though?
joke,
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have mint cake from Kendal that we could eat during this instead of our normal Jaffa cakes.
Feels like a betrayal, but I'm in. I'm up for mint cake.
Right. Well, here's some clips from Kendal that we filmed last year. So we truly are in the Lake District because it was reasonable weather. It's now bucketing down with rain. We've literally just paid to come into this car park, and the time it's taken us to get from the parking machine, which is 50 metres in that direction, to here, this torrential downpour has happened. We are going to walk around Kendal. I can't imagine we're going to actually be here for very long as it's absolutely bucketing, and we don't stand much chance of seeing many spooks, as most of them are sort of outdoor. And as you've heard from us before on previous shows, we often say that you've got to replicate the conditions of a particular haunting to stand the best chance of getting it. And I don't think there were any that I read about that involved thunderstorms, lightning, and also, as we got a warning today, a flood warning. So unless I can find a flood ghost or a lightning ghost, I'm not sure we're going to see much today. Oh, is that the rain stopping slightly? Right, I'm going to grab an umbrella. We're going to make a run for it. It's currently the middle of August in 2021. So as you can see, there's a COVID vaccination centre back here, and the reason we came to the Lake District is it's full of interesting places and castles, and we've got stone circles, places like that we could take you to. Thinking middle of August, that's the perfect time to be in a beautiful, lovely place like the Lake District. Well, this is about the 4th day of weather like this. We've currently got flood warnings, so we can't really take you where we wanted to go to today, which was a couple of castles. So we're in Kendal trying to find some places that we can actually go to, but most of the ghost stories to do with Kendal are in buildings. There's not a huge amount we can do here, other than maybe swim home. Kendal, like a few of the other places that we've been ghost hunting in, such places such as Edinburgh, has these little side streets called yards. And there's another place very near to where I've investigated a lot of the time in Tewkesbury that has these little yards. Now this is Angel Yard, which is one of the most famous ghost stories of the area, which we will tell you in a minute. But Angel Yard is all that's left of the Angel Inn, which stood on this site until the 1980s, and sadly didn't last much longer than that. It was one of Kendal's oldest hostilleries. Its premises, brewhouse, stabling, the outbuildings, everything ran behind this street and is now occupied by the South Lakeland District Council's offices and car park. Well, that's interesting. Not a great place to stick around looking for a spook. Now, the Angel Inn is said to have taken its name from 1745, when Bonnie Prince Charlie's troops passed through the town. Now, that's probably the most famous ghost story of the lot, and I don't really want to stand here because it's cold and wet. So we'll show you some pictures and I'll talk over the top. So this following story comes from the book Ghosts of the Lake Counties by Gerald Findler, or Findler, Findler, and it's a rare out-of-print book, but it contains a lot of stories about the Lake District. So this is on page 27 if you're following at home. A Prince at Kendal. In Kendal is an ancient inn, the Angel, which stands near the town hall. It was given its name because of a spectre which appeared in 1745. Bonnie Prince Charlie with his army had entered Kendal, and his Highlanders were busy raiding and robbing houses for anything that they fancied. Several of the Scots visited an inn and found it deserted, for the innkeeper and his family had hidden away in fear. But in their hurry, they left a small child playing about the floor. One of the Scots was about to seize the child when a wraith-like figure appeared and drove the invaders from the inn, and is perhaps among the best-known ghost stories in the whole of the Lakeland district. Hello, my paranormal tourist friends. We are now in Kendal in the Lake District, and we did start off just about half a mile up the road at the site of the Rifleman Arms. But it was a bit noisy there, so we thought we'd come and film somewhere slightly nicer at Abbott Hall, where the museum is as well, and the art gallery. But I'll just quickly tell you about the Rifleman Arms. There is a story there. Oh, I said I'd come here because it's quieter, and all of a sudden it gets really noisy. The Rifleman Arms, there's an old Victorian ghost story of a man that was sat in the arms, and he was waiting for his coach and horses to take him off to Windermere, which is where we're going to be heading later on. Now, he looked out of the window and saw that the coach was about to leave, so he suddenly rushed outside and ran up to the coach. Now, the coach itself already had a passenger in it, which was a woman who was sound asleep with a baby in her arms. As he got into the coach was rather, shall we say, a bit stinky, so he wasn't best pleased, and he leant across and tried to open the window. At which point, it kind of came away in his hand, and he sort of fell backwards out of the coach. This is according to the legend. Picking himself up, he realised there was no coach. It just disappeared. And the landlord came up to him and said, basically, what are you doing on the floor? And he replied, I just fell out of a coach. And he said, there was no coach. There hasn't been a coach all day. And there was, however, a coaching accident back in, I think, 1873, which involved a woman and her child sadly being killed. So the idea being is that is the ghost of that woman and child and the coach as well. Now, you won't get to see that coach because the ghost story says that modern sightings tend to be non-existent, but there is the sound of a coach and horses going up a hill. Now, we're here in the height of the sort of the English summer holidays, so obviously it's raining now. And we're at Abbot Hall, and I came down to Abbot Hall because it's a nicer and quieter place to film. But also, if you can see behind me, if you're watching the video version, if you're not watching the video version, just imagine there's a museum behind me, because that's a museum. And we're at Abbot Hall, and Abbot Hall was built on a medieval site in the back in 1750 through to 1760 for Colonel George Wilson. Now, it was planned as a country house in the town, and it was a pretty big one at that, and it's now the art gallery and shop, and I'd love to take you in there and show you everything there, but due to COVID it is obviously closed, along with the museum behind me. Now, it was pretty much like the poshest house you could possibly get to in the entire town, and it nearly was demolished back in the 30s and 50s. And a charitable trust came together, saved the building and turned it into the art gallery. And if I can just turn us around here, you can see it says art gallery above the door. And if you are listening, it says art gallery above the door, just take my word for it. So as you can see, it's all this lovely grey stone building, and another reason I brought you here is because there are figures seen wandering around here late at night. Now, I'm assuming, when I'm asked about this, that is of a paranormal variety, not just strange people wandering about in a park. It's a beautiful area. On a lovely sunny day, this would look lovely. Sadly, it's not a lovely sunny day. We're in Kendal, we're heading up to the castle, we're having a wander around town, picking up a few of the ghost stories here before we head off to Windermere later on, where we're going to bring you some more interesting stories, including some very strange flying hedgehogs.
So we are going to go on a little journey, not a literal physical journey, well kind of it was, but not now anyway, it was a year ago, from Kendal of the mint cake fame to Windermere. And I was going to make some weird gag about, and it's not mere windiness that there is, but in fact spooky goings on. So from Kendal to Windermere, and from phantom carriages, stop laughing at me, to what I want to say is like spooky monsters, but paranormal expert Ross Andrews informs me are referred to as cryptids, which I thought was a kind of crossword, but or triffids. No, that's
so that's
cryptids.
the one you mentioned, like the name. Surely the other named creature, or are we leaving that as a surprise? I think that's the most fantastically named creature.
Well, he hasn't seen the footage, so he doesn't know what it's called.
This is all going to be a big surprise.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about.
I'm genuinely a bit concerned now.
Two creatures from Lake Windermere. So there was two little clips that we filmed, and possibly the most paranormal thing about being at Windermere that time last year was, or this time last year, what am I talking about? Was it the distinct lack of people wearing masks? There was thousands of people getting COVID, and everybody was walking around no mask on at all. And I think I must have been literally the only one there out of about 10,000 people wandering around Lake Windermere, and it turned into some weird thing. They may as well have been going around licking each other for all I know. There was that many people catching COVID.
Just as a disclaimer, don't go around licking people. At least not without consent.
Yes.
Get the consent.
Check they've had a COVID test first. So I was there, and at one point we've got a clip coming up. If you've been to Windermere, you'll know that there's kind of like the tourist bit of Windermere that's down on the lake, and then there's Bowness in Windermere, which is slightly further up the hill. So you have to kind of, if you park in Bowness in Windermere and walk down to Windermere, you're in trouble because you've then got to mountaineer to get back to your car. All right. So
is there a Bowness monster? Is it like a lesser?
Well, you say that. Roll VT.
Oh my goodness!
It's a cryptid.
It's here.
It's the hound.
It's the hound.
Roll VT.
Roll VT.
Well, here we are. We're on Lake Windermere. You can hear the water lapping away at the shores behind me. And there's a reason we've come here, because we're just down the road from Bowness on Windermere. Now that's a town, if you followed the coast around that way, you'd reach in about 2 miles. Now the reason we've come here is a cryptozoological reason, because there was a creature that's been spotted here relatively recently, and a lot of reports going back over the last 20 years. Now because, and this is a great marketing ploy here, because the town around here is called Bowness on Windermere, they've created a monster called the Bowness Monster, or Bownessie. Now he's been described in various ways by people going out into the lakes on the boats, on the tours, and there's one just disappearing behind a tree over there. There we go, we can see a boat. For those of you who are listening to the audio version, I'm just pointing out one of the many boats that go out on the water, and lots of reports from these have talked about a long creature up to about 30 foot is the longest one I've seen, anywhere between 3 foot to 30 foot, so this is a very strange creature, and it's multi-humped like the classic Nessie type creature, possibly eel shaped, possibly otter shaped, some people have claimed, and there's been lots and lots of sightings of this over the years. It's not the only strange creature that's been sighted in the lake. There's been many creatures spotted over the years, and the lake itself is about 10.5 miles long, so we've got quite a bit of body of water here, with its widest point being over a mile across, and its deepest I think is something like 200 feet, so we've got quite a large body of water here for a strange cryptid to exist. However, now if you are watching the video version, I'm going to put out some footage of the huge amount of tourists that are wandering around, and when you see that you'll think there's no possible way that there's a creature that can be wandering around here that isn't spotted on a daily basis. But anyway, that's the Bowness Monster, but it's not the only creature that tourists have come here looking for.
So clip number 2 of the Windermere experience, so clip number 3 overall, but clip number 2 of Windermere, is about the Tizzy Whizzy, and I mean, I that's all I got for you. It sounds great, it sounds exciting. I know nothing about anything or what's happening, but it's called the Tizzy Whizzy.
Roll VT!
Enjoy.
Now, there is a reason I'm stood on a jetty surrounded by boats, because if you see behind us, there are islands out in the middle of Lake Windermere, and the Belle Isle, over there somewhere, is famous for having a creature, another cryptid, that is particularly prevalent in this area. I say prevalent, it isn't at all. It's called a Tizzy Whizzy. Now, if I describe a Tizzy Whizzy, it's supposedly got the body of a hedgehog, it's got the wings of a dragonfly, the antennae of a bee, and the tail of a fox or a squirrel. And yeah, I know, it's very strange. But the story is that a particular boatman, who was a local character, was desperate for money. So he would take people on these Tizzy Whizzy hunts across the lake looking for this strange creature. Now, obviously it was some kind of ploy to make money and get people out on his boat and onto the water, but people have actually reported seeing this creature. And the reason I'm talking about it is, yes, it's weird, I know, and yes, it obviously didn't exist and the guy made it up as a tourist thing to do, but there is a particular theory that if enough people believe in something, they create a kind of an energy about it. So if enough people believe in a place is haunted, it will be haunted. If enough people believe in the Loch Ness Monster, then perhaps somehow they're giving off some joint weird sort of ESP type thing, and everybody picks up on it and their brains create a Loch Ness Monster. So the Tizzy Whizzy, I know, the Tizzy Whizzy is a strange creature that possibly was just a marketing ploy to get people to Windermere and some particular fisherman to go out on his boat, but also there's a strange theory that it may have created an actual ghost-like creature that flies around. Seriously, this thing supposedly can fly and dives underwater. It's apparently very fast underwater as well.
So, okay, so we're pulling out Tizzy Whizzy, which apparently is a phrase that provokes enough destructive humour in terms of reaction that this is a re-record. So we are stepping away. We're coming out of Tizzy Whizzy. Tizzy Whizzy is done. It's over. Whatever it was, and we are instead going somewhere else. Penrith Castle. We're going to Penrith
further
Castle.
up the road.
Further up the road.
If you go uphill, basically, and keep going uphill
Downdale,
from Windermere, and there's a lot of hills to go up. Can I suggest, if you are travelling around the Lake District, try and get onto the motorway and use that. Otherwise, you're going up some really windy roads and over mountains, basically. And if you're in a big vehicle, it can be a horrible experience. So get yourself onto a major road, follow your sat-nav, and head up to Penrith and Penrith Castle.
Penrith Castle. Roll.
VT!
VT.
Well, I've taken a 10-minute opportunity, whilst it stopped raining, to stand in Penrith Castle. And you do want it to stop raining when you stood in Penrith Castle, because we're outdoors and it's a ruin. One good thing about Penrith Castle is that it's basically in a park. It's English heritage, but it is a place you don't have to pay to get into. It's completely free. They can't sort of stop you wandering around, and obviously there's opening times and all that, but we are in a park, so how they can stop you just wandering about at any time of the day, it's hard to say. Now, there's no specific ghost attached to this building. There are many tales of strange hooded figures wandering about and strange sort of shadowy shapes, but we are in a park. So at night time, when there's hooded figures wandering around, it could just be some random people wearing hoodies. One good thing about Penrith Castle is you're opposite a whole bunch of shops that have car parks for free for 3 hours. So you can, in the middle of the day, come along and just wander about the castle without any problem. So we're going to have a wander about, and we're going to tell you of some nearby ghost tales, several of which we've talked about before on the show. Now, there are various areas around here that have lots of ghost stories attached to them. So you can always visit Penrith Castle whilst looking for a ghost in some of the other places, if you don't think that Penrith Castle itself is haunted.
So coming out of Penrith Castle, it just looks like I've been laughing about something and I have, but I'm going to keep going. So coming out of Penrith Castle, you can follow a journey to King Arthur's Stones. And King Arthur's Stones is one of the many stone circles in the UK, often associated with druidic practices, amongst many other traditional practices.
Well, it's a Celtic area.
Very Celtic.
It's Cumbria amongst other places. So you had Cumbria, Wales, Cornwall, Ireland and Scotland were all part of Breton and Greater Brittany, which is where we get Great Britain from. And so they all sort of followed very similar religious practices and bizarre rituals. So they all sort of shared in that kind of stone circle stuff, right down from sort of Tintagel areas up through Stonehenge, through Wales, etc., right up to the Orkney Isles.
And really importantly, just like Penrith Castle, it's free to visit.
Yes, and it's not the only ones. If you know one.
Yes, I do. I know of a incredibly impressive megalith, and she's female. Long Meg and her, oh God, I can't remember how many daughters. 46?
Oh, it's not that many. Yeah, can't remember.
Anyway.
She has daughters.
She has, so they date between the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, which I looked down and read because I couldn't remember. So I jotted that down. But they were identified as a group of 13th century witches who were turned into stone by renowned medieval wizard Michael Scott. And I only pause there.
Because you've got a confused look on your face.
You have a very confused look on your face.
Well,
were you familiar with renowned wizard Michael Scott?
Well, it tickled me because I'd looked at your camera and then in my head I'd done a kind of oh, if I just sit here and look around, I can then do an office style look to camera. And then the next thing you said was you started talking about a wizard called Michael Scott, and I was like,
you explain that. Who's Michael Scott?
Michael Scott. He's called Michael Scott. Michael Scott is the is played by Steve Carell in the American version of The Office.
In the not so good Office. Yes.
He's the boss of Dunder Mifflin, the paper.
So I was discussing this.
And they do a lot of like talking to somebody and then looking at the camera in a kind of way. So it was just funny that I thought that, and then
well, I have to admit, when it says renowned medieval wizard Michael Scott, I'm like, yep, makes sense. And I can absolutely imagine him getting annoyed with Long Meg.
Well, then also it's like it's not a supremely medieval sounding name, Michael Scott.
It's not, is it?
It's the middle management of wizardry.
Yeah,
old Mikey got annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the petrified sisterhood, i.e. turned to stone sisterhood,
Not scared.
is condemned to stay as stone until someone counts the stones in the right order twice.
Bloody hell.
Which is, as I said about the Celtic traditions, that's not the only stone circle in the country that has a similar one, and we've talked about one called the Rollright stones.
Rollright stones.
Where people can't count the stones more than once. Every time you count it, you'll get a different number.
Yes.
And that's in Oxfordshire.
Also free to visit.
Yes,
And
also free to visit.
I don't really know anything about it, but interestingly, I learnt recently, although I can't believe I didn't know about it because I used to live not far from it, but Avebury,
Yes.
where there's
superb.
showloads of
Greatest
stones,
places you can
and
possibly go.
also free to.
We've got a visit
the stones
planned
itself.
soon.
We have.
So maybe we will.
And you can see me and a couple of ghost hunters in Avebury if you look on YouTube and search for Frankenstein's Lobster Road to Glastonbury. You'll see us. I would say you won't see us sat on top of the stones because that's not allowed. It's very good CGI, obviously, of us.
And actually, one more I think about, it's just quite interesting as well, because not only is it, I mean, it is free to visit, but in Alfriston in East Sussex, where we do live now, there are large stones around.
I think we've even done.
I think we might have mentioned before, and what's quite interesting about them is that they're not in a circle now, but allegedly these large sort of boulders that are strangely dotted about the village were once part of a set of standing stones.
Well, one thing you'll get a lot of stories. We've had something technical go weird.
What is that doing?
I don't know. One of our cameras has just gone, no, I've had enough.
It's the spirits again, over a year on, and they're still
messing us around. That was weird.
That was really
I can't
weird.
seem to turn that one back on. So hopefully the other cameras are going.
Oh, there we go.
We're back in the room, possibly.
Which camera have we lost?
This little one down here.
The
okay.
the result.
One common feature about stories about stones is they often refer to people, witches, etc., witches are people, being turned to stone. And we get that in the Rollright stones, as we've mentioned, where you've got the King's Stone, where he was turned to stone, and then there's the Whispering Knights that are off on the other side of the field, they've been turned to stone, and then the smaller stones are supposedly the army. And so quite often you'll get the same story told about any particular standing stone circle where they were once people that have been turned to stone. So, saying that, King Arthur's stones. Here's some video. Well, to our foreign visitors, you will know England as a country full of strange mythical things such as King Arthur. Now, King Arthur's round table is over there, and we're going to take a look at that in a minute. Don't panic, it's not a real table, don't get excited. Oh, walking uphill is never fun. Not when you're talking to camera. And at the moment, I'm walking uphill at a henge. We'll chuck up the information on the screen in a minute. Now, our foreign visitors to this country, when I say henge, will immediately think of Stonehenge and the massive rocks and boulders there that create this fantastic building almost of Neolithic status. But if you've been here, you'll realise one rock doesn't really do it, does it? It is an enclosed area, as you can see, all the way around. We're currently stood on top of the edge of the mound. There we go. And if we look over to the side, you will see how high up we are. As you might be able to see off in the distance over there, some more mountains covered in clouds. We're just down the road from Penrith. This is a henge. There's a collection of several of them. That one stone we saw in the middle actually is the only remaining stone of what was a decent looking stone circle. Back in the 18th century, it was actually recorded that there were 4 stones, and they've all disappeared over time. In Britain, you have to realise that we're very good at recycling. And many castles, such as Penrith Castle, which we've seen in ruins, lots of the bricks then end up being reused in lots of the buildings in the surrounding areas. And the same happened with stone circles. People forgot what they were used for, had no idea what they were about, places of magic and mystery, and certainly when the church came along, they kind of wanted to get rid of paganism and instead try to get rid of all the symbols of pagan worship and so on. So this stone here is the last remaining one. Oh, poor lonely stone. We love you. We give you a big hug.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Post a little trip to King Arthur's stones. We have got all sorts of other little bits of footage that sort of did make it through during that strange period of time, which we're going to gradually let filter out. That's definitely a better word than spill out over the course. I've said it now anyway. Over the course of time, upcoming time, the future. That's the one. So really, all that remains to be said is thanks for watching and or listening, and we'll see you again soon, much sooner than last time. Anyway, so thanks very much. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from you. Where I'm looking, and it's goodbye from paranormal expert Ross.
It's definitely goodbye from me until next time.
Goodbye. Oh no, goodbye now you can see us doing it.
Goodbye.
Oh, hang on. What's that?
What is that music?
It's like there's a band in the pool.
Oh my god, what are you doing in there? It's far too cold.
Oh, it's a real danger in terms of
It is. They've got electrical instruments as well.
Yeah, wow.
That can't be healthy.
I hope we're not about to watch them die.
I'm gonna air guitar along because now you can see me. It looks like I'm playing ghost instrument. By not moving my hand.
Bye.
Cheerio. I'm the only person under 65 that says cheerio. So I say cheerio.
Goodbye then.
Bye. It's not a real accent. That was much more informative than what I said internally, which is that one thing about stories about stone circles is that they rock.
Oh god.
In a roundabout sort of way.
I'm glad we cut to VT.
Yeah, same. I'm glad this is happening whilst they're watching VT.